So I want to talk today about the importance of second opinions, intuition, and skill, because those things, when tied together, can make all the difference. I mean, in hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you want to get down to brass tacks, right? It can really make a big difference. So I'm going to give you an example of something that happened. I had a listing. We did a termite inspection with a company that is really reputable in Sacramento. I'm not going to say any names because I don't believe in, giving anyone bad press. You can be sure I will never use this company again. But that's the company that the sellers were getting monthly termite, the spray where they come and they spray, whatever. So we used that company to get a termite inspection done, and we were just about to close this transaction. Well, the inspection was under the house. So it's one thing when you're walking around the house and you can poke and prod and you can say, yeah, that looks like dry rot. Yeah, that might be some termite infestation, whatever. But when it's under the house, it's very difficult for the average person, me, the average realtor, to go poke around and look, because, after doing this for almost 30 years, I've gotten pretty good at being able to tell where dry rot is, or you can just touch something with a screwdriver, and if the wood goes in, well, it's dry rot. But when this termite guy, who was a supervisor for this company, came up from under the house, he said, yeah, you've got two infestations, wood-boring beetles and termites. Now, the first thing that happened is inside my body, a little lie detector went off. And that's just from being an intuitive person. But logically, I look at the house, and this house, the owner has owned it for 60 years. He passed away. But he kept that house and that property so pristine that you would never even see like a gum wrapper in the front yard. It was so pristine. And anyone that would keep their home that clean and clear and presentable, I had a really hard time understanding that how there could be super damage under there. Not to mention the fact that they've been getting it treated every month, and it's an older home. So I can get where dry rot would, be an issue. But when he said that, and then he said something else to me, he goes, since your seller is been a good customer of ours, used us for several years, we're going to give her a preferred discount, which will be $6,600 to fumigate the house. Now, my little lie detector went off again, because I'm like, $6,600 to tent a house of this size, that seems like it's really high. So I did some looking, and I found out that for, and the fumigation cost, it goes by what kind of bugs or infestation you're going after and what kind of structure it is. Like a house is different than a barn, is different than an apartment building. But I still looked it up, and it was like $6,600 was really high. It said normally between $3,000 and $4,500. That was like the range for that size, that much square footage. So that little lie detector test or indicator in my belly was going off. Then he said to me, and there's about 12 rotten posts underneath the house, that they're just old, I can just touch it. He said to me, I can just touch it with my screwdriver and it just goes right through. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm wondering to myself, how is this house still standing if it's got all that dry rot underneath there? So the grand total for section 1, and in termite language or in dry rot language, it just means section 1 are things that have to be addressed right now. And so obviously we're up against the clock. We're supposed to close this transaction, and the buyers wanted, understandably, they wanted a clear section 1. And here this guy comes out and he tells me it's going to be about $20,000. $20,000 of my seller's hard-won equity. And not only that, the seller had passed away, and so it was his widow that, I was selling the house for. And so here's a senior woman who lost her husband, who's selling her home, being told that it's going to cost $20,000 just to get it up to par. Now, all sorts of alarms are going off with me. What did I do? I got a second opinion. So I asked around. First of all, I asked around because I always have a list of preferred vendors, but I didn't have a current one for termite. I'd been using one company here and there, And again, like I said, we only chose this company because the seller had been getting service from them for so long. So, it's common sense. They've been servicing her house against termites and infestation, so they're not going to find anything because they know they've been doing the work. Wrong. Anyway, I chose a company, and you might want to write this down if you're anywhere in the Sacramento region, because it's called Good Life, and they are so good. Good Life came out, and they went under the house, and he comes back out, and he says to me, "You don't have any infestation at all." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "No, you don't have any infestation at all." I had sent him the report that this fraudulent supervisor of this well-known and respected company in Sacramento, I'd sent him that report. So he already knew what he was, looking at. Now, if you are a person who has a business, your goal usually is to look at the report the other person gave and to see if you can beat the price. And it would have been so easy for Good Life to just go under there and go, "Yep, all this is right, but we can do it for $15,000. And they would have gotten the job. They would have gotten the job hands done. Not because it was cheaper, because it was cheaper, of course, but also because it assuaged the idea that all this stuff is wrong. If he backed it up and said, "Yeah, all this is wrong, you got to fumigate and you got to get these, posts replaced, blah, blah, blah." But he didn't say that. He said, "You have no infestation, so forget that 6,600. So I'm like, "How's a dry rot?" He goes, "There's like 5 spots that need to be strengthened. But if all the posts that this other inspector said were bad, I didn't repeat myself accidentally. If all the posts he said were bad, were actually bad, the house wouldn't even be standing here. The house would not have a structure to stand on." So it ended up being 4,700, 20,000 plus. And they're really clear, like once we get in there could be more things that come up. So it was a soft 20,000 versus a hard 4,600. And then everything's going to be fine. Clear section 1. I want you to really think about that. If I hadn't insisted upon a second opinion, my seller would literally be out $15,000 more than she ended up with. So I saved her that $15,000 because I knew, and what I said at the beginning of this video, my intuitive skills, my market knowledge and expertise, because I just did the research, and it's like, that's too much for a fumigation. And just doing the work. There's a lot of agents. Even my seller of this house told me I was just going to suck it up and pay it. Like, she was super, super grateful that I went to the extra trouble. Even when I was going to the extra trouble, hunting around, asking people, that's part of my job. My job is to make sure that if my clients, whether it's sellers or buyers, mostly sellers, my job is to make sure that they're getting the most money possible. So when someone comes along and says, "Oh, this is going to cost you 20 grand to fix," I'm not going to just lay down and say, "Okay, Miss Seller, open your wallet. Let's just, get this deal closed." No way. So make sure, whether you're selling your own house or you hire an agent or whatever it is you're doing in life, even not just real estate, make sure that you don't close down your intuitive, your intuitive timer that will come up and tell you, "That's not right." Because that little voice in your brain, in your gut, that little voice knows things. And it's things that we just ignore, but we get that funny feeling. So your intuition is super, super important. But also, if you are ever going to sell a house and you're going to get an agent, make sure you get an agent who, one, has the ability to tune in and know when something's off, who has the expertise to understand what's going on in the market, and who has the tenacity to not give up. Because if it would have been so easy. Like she said, she'd have just paid it. And I couldn't have that, because all 3 of those things, my intuition, my market knowledge, and my tenacity, had me saying, "No, I'm not accepting this. I need more evidence. I don't believe this." And I was right. Now, does it pay off 1,000% of the time? Of course not. But when it comes to protecting my clients' biggest assets, and money is a big asset too, right? So it's your home and your money, it's your equity. That is like your biggest asset, right? When it comes to that, I am not a roll over, play dead kind of girl. I'm going to find out what's really going on. I'm going to get a second opinion. Even if I have to pay for the second opinion myself, I'm going to get a second opinion if something doesn't sit right with me, because I want my clients to get the most profit possible when we sell their property. So if you cannot tell my passion about this, well, then I don't know what to tell you, but I promise you, I'm very passionate about saving and making my clients money. That's what I do. That's what I'm all about, and I want to help you do that too. So click on the link below. Let's set up a time to talk, and let's get that house of yours on the market. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now.